Good evening. My name is Carol Barry Austin, and I, along with my co-chair Sue Willis, would like to welcome you here this evening on behalf of the Coalition and specifically the Schools Committee. This evening's event is going to dedicate itself to the relationship between school policies and integration in our schools. The questions that we've prepared will focus on the middle school IB program, the recruiting and retention of the racially and diverse teaching staff, the racial minority achievement gap, and about ways to provide professional development for teachers, particularly in cultural competency. As in the past, we will include direct questions from the audience, time permitting. Audience members will be given an index card, which you'll find on the table, to write down the question, come up and ask the question of the candidates. Our moderator for this evening is Abby Hopler, a former Board of Ed member, a longtime Maplewood resident, and a current trustee of the Coalition and a member of the Schools Committee. So at this time, I'd like to also make note that Dr. Malik, who will not be here with us this evening, he is on a mission with Doctors Without Borders to South America. He has responded to the 4 questions that we've sent to the candidates, so as a courtesy, we will have someone reading his responses to the questions. I would like to turn the program now over to our moderator, Abby. That's a panic.
I'd like to welcome everyone again. I'd like to welcome everyone in the audience and our candidates. Every table has a list with guide rules. I'd like to go over them. Be respectful. No disruptions. Please hold applause till the end of all questions and answers. During the evening, you will be allowed to write some questions. You will be asked to write some questions that you may want to ask the candidates. There are index cards on every table. You can write your question on the index card, and please put your name on it. If your name is not on the index card, I will not call you up, and you will not get to ask your question. There will be people collecting the questions. They will be handed to me. I will then pick from a basket, and I will read your name, and you can come up and read your own question. So again, if your name is not on the card, you will not get to ask your question. Everyone is going to own their own question. If you want to ask a question, put your name on the card. And the questions are to be written on index cards. Please include your name. Questions should be answerable by any candidate. We will not accept the question directed to or about any one candidate. So I want to make that clear. Questions should be answerable by any candidate and not directed to or about any one candidate. In the interest of addressing as many topics as possible, we ask that you refrain from repeating a topic that has already been asked. And I will read the question, and if I feel that it's already been answered, then I will go on to someone else. Okay, let's begin the evening. We have opening statements from each candidate, and each candidate will have 2 minutes to give their opening statement, and I would like to start with Ms. Jones.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Maureen Jones. Thank you all for coming tonight, and thank you to the Community Coalition members for the opportunity to participate. I know what it's like to struggle, and I also know what it's like to be an outsider. My family emigrated from Haiti to the United States when I was 7 years old, and I vividly remember sitting in a classroom, not understanding the language, and having to watch other children for cues. I remember what it was like having to figure out what was happening in the classroom. But I also remember having teachers who engaged me, who supported me, and helped me be successful. I ended up flourishing in school and became a speech-language pathologist. As part of being a speech-language pathologist, I've been fortunate to work in many districts, and I've seen how education is done, and I've been able to observe different approaches. I am running because we need to ensure that every child gets whatever help they need, and that every child experiences rigor, challenge, and opportunity in every classroom. Finding the right way, not just for English language learners or special needs students, but for all students in everything we do, requires a superintendent and board that's able to translate educational vision into effective delivery of services and programs. Good things are happening in the district, but we also have our challenges. We must enable children to succeed by consistently having high expectations for them. We must enable families to succeed by providing them with clear and consistent guidance to help them navigate the system. We must enable teachers to succeed by giving them the support and mentoring needed to master all the new approaches of IB and Common Core. And we must be patient. We must get all teachers to look at each child as an individual and understand what it takes to engage them and challenge them in everything they do. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Ms. Smith.
Thank you to the Community on Coalition on Race for asking us to come to this event, and thank you all for coming to listen to what we have to say. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. My husband and I have been living in South Orange for almost 25 years, and we've raised all three of our children here. They've gone through the schools, South Mountain, South Orange Middle, and Columbia High School. In every one of those schools, I participated on the PTAs and HSAs, ultimately ending up as co-president of President's Council. And I also spearheaded two parent groups challenging the district and the administration to continue to challenge and provide rigor in the middle schools. And as a result of some of that participation, I was asked to be on the Strategic Planning Committee and also on the Task Force on Equity and Excellence. In my other life, I am a customs and international trade lawyer, and I've been practicing customs and trade for about 30 years. I'm an adjunct professor at Brooklyn Law School teaching customs and trade. I would like to put my leadership skills and my experience to work on the Board of Ed. Some of the issues that are more important to me are providing more opportunities for all students to have access to challenging coursework. We need improved professional development in the area of differentiated instruction so that the needs of all students are addressed at the elementary and middle schools in particular. We need to make sure we are providing the support for students with special needs in our district. At the high school, I would like to ensure that access to AP and honors classes is increased and that the process and requirements for entering those classes is transparent. We also need to provide better support to teachers and give them the respect that they deserve. There appears to be quite a disconnect between the administration and the teachers, as well as a lack of trust in certain areas, which is disturbing. Finally, we cannot ignore the desperate financial situation facing our district, and we must take that on this year.
Speaker.
Good evening. Can everyone hear me? Thank you to the Community Coalition on Race for hosting tonight's forum, and thank you to all of you for your concern about our children and our schools. My name is Elizabeth Baker. I'm the baker in Jones and Baker, and I'm a 12-year resident of Maplewood. My husband, Joel Vandevasi, and I moved here as our oldest daughter, Olivia, was about to arrive. She's here tonight, and she's a 7th grader at Maplewood Middle. My younger daughter, Eleanor, is in 4th grade at Tuscan. In my day job, I'm a lawyer representing working people. I, in addition to litigation, do quite a bit of negotiations, policy and legislative work, as well as many different types of financial oversight and advocacy. I'm running for the South Orange Maplewood Board of Education because I want to make sure that the visions we adopt at Academy Street become the reality for each and every child in every classroom. Since my children entered the district, we've had some great experiences and they've had some great teachers. But as a parent who's been involved in our schools, I've also seen the challenges and the obstacles that get in the way of creating the great learning environments that we want for our children. We've struggled with consistency from school to school and even classroom to classroom. Despite our high expectations and dreams and aspirations for our children, too many families and children still encounter a culture of low expectations and rigid systems that seem more focused on continuing things because they've been done a certain way or holding children back rather than lifting them up. And then we've had ongoing communication problems. We can and must do better for our children, all our children. The superintendent search has provided us with the opportunity to step back, to have frank discussion about what's going well in our district and where we can do much better. We have many strengths to build upon, including the talents and the commitment of folks like you in this room to making our schools great for our children. In both my professional life and my volunteer work, I've taken on challenges, and these are the commitments and the skills that I want to bring to our district and our children. Thank you.
Dr. who is in South America, as we told you, and we have his opening statement and his answers to the questions. And as a courtesy, we are allowing them to be read tonight. Trustee from the coalition, Dr. Alice Bowling-Jones, will be them. Thank you, Alice.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, the Community Coalition on Race and my fellow candidates. I regret to inform you that I will not be able to participate in today's debate because I am in a foreign country with my fellow physicians on a medical mission providing most needed care to underprivileged patients in South America. I do this annually around this time of the year, and this trip was arranged since the beginning of the year. You know what I stand for: quality education for all our children. As you know, I was once a school teacher in New York public school system. I am a father of 4 children, and all my children attend South Orange and Maplewood public school system. I have lived in Maplewood for over 17 years.
Thank you. Okay, the first question will be directed at Ms. Baker. And she will get 2 minutes to answer the question, and the other candidates will each get 1 minute. And then we'll have Dr. Malapu's answer also read. The first question is, the district teaching staff does not reflect the racial and cultural makeup of the student body. What specifically would you do to recruit and retain a more diverse staff?
We need great teachers who truly get our kids, and a teaching staff that all our children see role models in and can be mentored by. Hiring a great teaching staff requires much more work than just posting an ad and expecting great candidates to come. It requires intentionality and focus through year-round outreach, through relationship building between our district and the teaching programs that develop and nurture great teachers, and through the relationships that our school leaders and the great teachers in our district have with their peers and colleagues throughout the region. The Diversity Recruitment Fair that the Community Coalition sponsored last spring is something that we should continue and that we should promote widely, not just within our community, but within educational circles throughout the region and frankly nationally. But it's also work that we must continue in our district year-round. We must also go beyond recruitment and outreach. If we are to compete to hire and retain great, diverse teachers, we must make sure that our districts and our school have the reputation of being great places to work, to start out, to be nurtured, to be developed, and to grow, and to make a difference in children's lives. Our diversity is a strength, and it's what brought many of us to this community. But we go beyond diversity. We must be committed to inclusion and to opportunity, both for our students and for our staff. This is what we must communicate to our current staff and to the teachers we are trying to attract. The cultural competency training that our district is undertaking is a first step of a much longer journey that we must take in our schools, but it's also a significant commitment to inclusion that I think will help us attract diverse teachers.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Jones.
By law, the district cannot establish quotas or preferences in hiring. What we need to do is work harder to improve the pool from which we hire so that more highly qualified candidates of color are available. This isn't easy because only 16% of public school teachers nationally are people of color, but we're not doing enough. We need to do more recruitment, seek out promising college students, and work to convince them to apply in our district. Many people have suggested we reach out to the historically black colleges, and if necessary, we should do that by establishing relationships with those institutions. Beyond hiring new teachers, we need to work to attract the best teachers of color who may be in the market for a job change. We also need to convince Columbia High School graduates to come back to our district and teach. And we need to actively seek people of color who are contemplating a second career after Wall Street to consider teaching here. I would also note that the two recent principal hires at Maplewood Middle and Jefferson were people of color. But they were not hired just for that reason, but because they are both superior educators who will make a positive difference for all children.
Thank you. Ms. Smith.
We all agree that ours is a wonderfully diverse district. Unfortunately, the makeup of the teaching profession nationally does not come close to reflecting the level of diversity in our student population. So we do have to be creative in ways of reaching out to hiring more diverse teaching staff for our district. We should use targeted outreach to colleges and teacher training institutes with large minority populations. Maybe we should create a teacher committee that consists of a diverse variety of teachers who can then be ambassadors for our district to say, this is a great place to come and work. Come join us in our mission. And we also need to explore alternate routes whereby minorities are brought in. The National Center for Education Information issued a report that said that 30% of teachers coming from alternative pathways are non-white. And maybe that's one of the things that we should look to also, not the traditional campus kind of universities and institutions, but online learning and other approaches.
Thank you. Alice. Dr. Malala's answer.
Specifically, I will select a superintendent who has experience and a record in hiring and developing a diverse staff. I believe less than 10% of certified licensed teaching professionals are Black or Hispanic. I agree with our Board of Education goal to increase the pool of qualified minority applicants by 20%. But I do not support quotas or hiring less qualified teachers. I applaud the work of the coalition in going to job fairs with the administration at historically Black colleges and universities. I would support funding for expansion of this program as well.
Thank you. The next question is about cultural competency. The coalition recently sponsored a workshop run by the American Conference on Diversity. We sponsored it in April. Teachers were offered professional development hours, and 25 teachers participated from all the elementary schools. And we're very pleased that the district has decided to continue this process. Question number 2. I will start with Ms. Baker. Cultural competency is vital in the educational process. What steps would you take to ensure that it is a priority for the administration to implement as part of professional staff development?
If we want to create a great learning environment and nurturing experience for every child, our teachers and our administrators must make sure that we can teach in a cross-cultural manner that reaches all children and that we can partner with all families. It is significant that our district has committed to training all staff and providing both vocabulary and skills and cultural competency, but these trainings are really just the beginning of what should be a much longer plan of work. What I'd like to focus on as a board member is how we take that training, take that to conversation, and start building those skills each and every day in our classrooms, in our schools, how we make our schools more open, more inviting to all parents and to all families, and how we actually help teachers get past stereotypes or demographics and learn to focus on each and every child as an individual learner today and as the leader that he or she can become as they grow. I also think in doing this that the role of the department heads and our school leaders is critical, and that as part of our training program, we must provide them with the tools as well as an expectation, a plan for them to roll out these skills and to create the environments that we want to see in our classrooms. Thank you.
Ms. Baker? Ms. Jones, I'm sorry.
The CCR has put out a definition of cultural competency, but we as a district need to define what it means for us. Cultural competency certainly means being aware of each group's ethnic and religious traditions and being sensitive to differences that may exist. In my view, however, cultural competency means seeing beyond what are ultimately superficial group differences, seeing each child not as a Haitian child, not as a Jewish child, not as an Irish child, or not as a Mexican child, but just as a child. We must think about what preconceived notions do to children and how we can set them up for failure before they even enter the classroom. We will only be successful as a district when we learn to treat every child with the respect and care that we want for our own children, in spite of perceived differences. We won't accomplish that sort of cultural competency with one-day training. The struggle to get all adults in our schools to treat each child with care and respect must be ongoing, and it should be happening day in and day out in the classroom.
Thank you. Ms. Smith?
Respect for and understanding of different backgrounds is important, and I think the district is going to address it. I recognize the need for teachers and staff to understand others' culture and backgrounds. As a child of 8, I moved with my family to South America, where we lived for 7 years. Not only did we have to learn new languages, but we also had to adjust to the different customs and practices in each of the countries we lived in. It was much easier for me as a child than it was for my parents. When you're young, the world is full of new things, so a new country, just another new thing. My parents, on the other hand, had to learn how to negotiate different cultures, the appropriate behavior, gestures, and even the right words in any given situation, so as to avoid offending inadvertently. I think my biggest culture shock was when we returned to the States to live in a suburb of Rochester, New York, a very different worldview, and I had to make my biggest adjustment there. I had to learn how to fit in all over again at the age of 15. Yes, understanding different backgrounds and cultures is essential to living and learning in our world today. And with the diversity in our school district, it is appropriate to address it. Fortunately, our district is addressing it and has started implementing cultural competency training for administration, teaching staff, and also the Board of Education.
Thank you. Alice?
Mr. James Memley said that 25 administrators participated in a cultural competency workshop during the last board meeting. The Board of Education president said that the new board will undergo a portion of the workshop in February. I will support the expansion of this program to include all teachers, administrators, and staff. I will also vote for funding the Community Coalition on Race to renew and expand their cultural competency workshop for newly hired teachers.
Thank you. Don't forget, you still have time to write questions on the cards for questions from the audience period during this fall. Third question, Ms. Smith. As a Board of Education member, how are you going to ensure continuity in programs such as Middle Years IB and the Elementary Early Reading Intervention, especially in light of so many leadership and administrative changes?
As a Board of Ed member, I would insist on receiving regular reports on the new initiatives being implemented in our district, which are many, because it is difficult when they are accompanied by the mandates from the state to adopt the Common Core and PARCC assessments at the same time. With the huge turnover in our district, the board needs to make a conscious effort to conduct responsible oversight by asking the right questions and seeking the information needed to evaluate programs. All programs should have a clearly defined purpose, and assessments for how they are succeeding in practice must be included at the outset. We have a history of leaping into new programs without having provided for how we will measure them, and I would like to see that changed. From all accounts, the elementary early reading intervention is well received by teachers, parents, and students. I would like to see the data about how successful the intervention is in bringing students up to speed in reading, but it sounds like it might be a good thing. The IB program, on the other hand, is getting mixed reviews. What has come to light and made more apparent by the sheer number of many newly implemented programs and policies is that sometimes these policies are not conveyed properly to teachers and staff. As such, there is often a disconnect between policy, training, and implementation. It was clear at the last board meeting that a number of teachers at the middle schools do not believe that they are being given adequate training or support in implementing IB. Mind you, I don't believe that this applies to all middle school teachers, but it is disturbing and needs to be addressed. Finally, we have not received any kind of analysis on the effect of the de-leveling at the middle schools and whether it has accomplished what was intended. I am concerned that rather than leveling up, our standards may be lowered. I have heard that at least one middle school principal told his staff to focus almost exclusively on the lower 25% of the student population. That is not my idea of leveling up. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Baker?
During this time of transition, it is the role of the Board of Education to provide the continuity and the leadership to make sure that we stick to our initiative and that we implement our vision. But the Board of Ed must do so in partnership with our senior administrators, our master teachers, parents, and important community leaders such as the members of the Community Coalition on Race. This is how we both preserve our institutional memory and maintain the laser focus that we need to make sure that our visions become the reality. With respect to the early reading intervention program, early intervention makes sense both as an educational policy and as a cost-effective expenditure. With respect to the middle school IB program, I'm a parent of a child going through that program. And we can also see the benefits that it has brought and the rigor to the D-level classes in language arts, science, and social studies. We are living it every day. The implementation issues that we have heard about are with the lack of coordination between department heads, principals, and coordinators are the same types of problems that have hampered our district in everything we do. They say less about IB than about the need to tackle these obstacles that stand in the way of great teaching, whatever the program. Thank you.
Ensuring the continuity of programs in secondary to producing successful students and teachers and efficient, capable administration. Our students need to feel happy, safe, and secure in schools, and our teachers need to be motivated, challenged, and excited to teach each and every day. The idea of IB middle years program is good, but the cost is significant. We have spent $168,000 so far and will likely spend $50,000 or more per year. Maplewood Middle School teachers have indicated they feel stressed, confused, and do not understand educational objectives. This is not success. We have not done a good job in the implementation of this program for the past 3 years. We must take our time to select an excellent educational leader who has experience with IB, elementary early reading intervention, PARCC readiness, and coordinating these programs with turning around focus schools.
30 seconds.
We need a superintendent who takes the time to listen to our teachers. We have to listen to our new superintendent when he or she tells us what they need for all of us to be successful. As a board member, my job will be to select and support the superintendent with limited expenses.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Jones.
Most of the people responsible for proposing, planning, adapting, and implementing the many district curriculum initiatives are still here. It was not all Brian Osborne, but rather his leadership team consisting mainly of the principals. And one of those principals, Susan Grierson, is now the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction. We certainly need a new superintendent with expertise in curriculum and instruction and the ability to coordinate the efforts of our principals and program leaders. But it's not like all institutional knowledge departed when Osborne left. For IB, we still have one of 2 middle school principals who championed the effort to adopt IB, and both district IB trainers are still here. The new Maplewood Middle principal, by reputation, also has strong experience in IB. And one of the benefits of IB is that it is an internationally known program that provides its member schools with lots of support on implementation and clear benchmarks on how to gauge annual progress.
Thank you. My microphone's not working, but I think I can speak probably in a voice. Ms. Jones, last question is to you. Yeah, sorry, okay, I will read it. Okay. The final question. Nationally, the racial minority achievement gap begins early and increases over time. What are your thoughts about the programs and resources the district has implemented to address the gap? Is there evidence suggesting that the gap is closing in the South Orange Maplewood School District?
The district has made some inroads to address the achievement gap by implementing full-day kindergarten and adopting an increasingly effective early reading intervention model. However, we need to be able to address this as a district and make it a priority. Early education supports and interventions should be directed to the critical first years of schools to allow all children to be set up for success. But this is only one aspect of the problem. A majority of students of color are fully prepared to succeed academically, but are often stymied by low expectations on one hand and a lack of access and opportunity on the other. There are lots of problems with placement criteria and decision, poor scheduling, and access to higher level courses at the high school. The board can substantially eliminate these issues by adopting policy that can be immediately implemented and making sure that it's enforced. 1, all placement processes must be documented, submitted to the board, and subjected to external scrutiny to ensure rationality and fairness. 2, placement processes must have a full set of checks and balances, must rely on many different measures, and must ensure that multiple people are involved in any one single decision. And 3, we should ensure that there are enough seats in any upper level courses to accommodate all students who want to take that course, regardless of whether it's AP or honors.
The achievement gap is much more of an opportunity and an access gap, and I think that's where we have begun to make some progress, but we have much work to do. These gaps arise from institutional indifferences to the needs of individual children, from cultural insensitivity and economics. And if we're truly going to make sure that all children can succeed in our district, we have to address all 3 of these issues. With respect to the systems that we have in place, we have to look at our structures, our educational paths that oftentimes hold children back rather than lift them up. And I think that needs to start with the math program, which is a homegrown program, which is premised on the assumption that most children in our district cannot or will not get to calculus. I don't find that acceptable. Second, with respect to economic disparities, we need to make sure that we're deploying our resources that we already have on hand to make sure that we are removing barriers to entry and making sure that all children can access our curriculum. With respect to ST Math in our elementary schools, even though the Parenting Center has adopted a model in 2 of our schools to ensure that our computer labs are accessible to children who don't have internet access at home, we have not replicated this model throughout our district, nor have we made sure that on-site after-school programs have computer access so that the children who are staying in our school buildings till 6 o'clock can access this curriculum. And finally, okay, thank you.
While we have been making progress in closing the achievement gap, the past couple of years have seen a real lull in that progress. The latest NJASC scores reveal that the gap remained statistically flat in elementary school language arts and math. In the middle schools, the achievement gap actually widened by 3 percentage points in language arts while remaining statistically flat in math. We need to be more rigorous in examining the data on the effect each of our programs actually have on the gap. If programs designed to narrow the achievement gap aren't having that effect, then let's consider scrapping them and trying something better. We also need data on whether the gap is narrower for students who have been in the district for a long time versus those who entered the system late. That data has not been shared in quite some time. I would like to see what it says. Since the gap begins early, then we need to concentrate our efforts on the elementary school students. The early reading intervention program appears to be a good start, but we must evaluate it to determine whether appearances reflect reality. I also understand that they are considering another kind of intervention for math, and I think that that's a good thing that we can support. Finally, I agree with Maureen about the need for changes to the way the placement in levels is being handled at the high school. Things need to be more transparent. We need to provide the access. We need to open up new courses so that all students can participate.
When my oldest child entered the Tuscan school, I learned that there was an achievement gap. Affluent African American students underperform other students. I organized a group of parents and we brought experts in to define the statistics of the problem. I was the first president of the Tuscan Black Parents Association. We worked with the Tuscan PTA to send teachers to Washington, D.C. to attend the National Conference of the Education Trust on solving the achievement gap. When they returned, the teachers led an in-service to describe what they learned. We also took responsibility to teach our own children math and Black history, independent of the school's curriculum. This improved the achievement of African American students. Our achievement gaps are unacceptable and are not showing significant improvement. For students in grades 3 through 8 and 11, 54% of Black students, 33% of special education students, and 92% of white students were proficient in language arts, math, and science in the 2013-2014 school year. When you compare that to the 2012-2013 school year, 55% of Black students, 90% of white students, 30% of special ed students were proficient in all 3 subject areas. The achievement gap increased 3% for Black students.
That concludes this portion of the evening's forum. And now for questions from the audience. And, okay. Wait. I was trying to see. That's all the questions from both baskets? Okay. The first person is Peggy Sinberg. Peggy Sinberg, were you here? Will you please step up and read your question? Each candidate gets 1 minute? Huh? 1 minute? Okay, each candidate gets 1 minute to respond to the question. Okay? You can direct it at whenever you'd like. First.
How do you explain the comparatively high ranking of our elementary schools and the comparatively low ranking of Columbia High School? What do you think can be done to address this? What would you do?
Oh, sorry. I have, yes.
One of the things that I have read about that happened that caused the drop in score for the high school was the fact that the criteria were changed. So one of the favorable pieces of data that our high school had was class size, actually, and they took that out of the equation. So that was one explanation for the drop. So even though we're still in the top 100 high schools, we went down pretty far. I think that we have work to do in the high school, and that we need to increase access to AP and honors courses. We have to make the process transparent. I'm a pretty savvy parent, but even I, when I used to go to the AP nights at the high school, had trouble understanding how my children were supposed to do the things to get into those classes. So we need to do a better job at communicating that kind of information. We need to open up classes when we have more students than that are eligible for an AP. And
If you need the question read again, it's okay. Just let me know and I'll be.
Okay, I'll take a stab. I think our elementary schools are reflecting the investment that we've made in early intervention programs and also to demonstration school, the best practices that Seth Boyden has demonstrated for our district and that have been implemented in many of our elementary schools. I think the challenge at the high school, at the middle school and the high school, is severalfold. First, we have children who are coming into our district in middle school and high school. Our district is hard enough to navigate if you've had a child in the system since kindergarten. When the families come in from out of district, their children may have been coming from schools that were not as rich in resources as ours. We need to be embracing those families, embracing those children, and targeting resources and mentoring them so that they can participate fully in the academic and extracurricular life of our schools. Second, I think within the high school, we need to find a way to break down the large school environment. We have, nearly 2,000 children, and we need to have, advisors and mentors and ways to have children seen as individual learners, not just, over a course of years, who grow, not just students in a particular class from one year to the next. Thank you.
We really have to look at those numbers and that data because all our elementary school students feed into the middle school and the high school. So what's happening between that time that's causing those numbers to change? We have to look at access at the high school and what's being offered for children. We have to look at what kind of supports are being provided as classes are being held and what kind of interventions are given, particularly when children come here at the high school level. We have to make sure that we're providing interventions and be ready to accept them and work with them and provide the proper supports that they need. And we also need to ensure that parents know how to navigate the system and understand the different levels that their children are put in, and also understand how to gain support and intervention for their kids.
Thank you. The next person is Kathy Riley.
That was a very pragmatic question.
Yes. It wasn't before.
Mine is a very pragmatic question. How many hours do you expect this job to take each week? And where are you going to find the time? Morning. Yes, sorry.
Thank you. Well, having been a former PTA president and going into it not knowing how much time that would consist of, I'm committed to working and being dedicated to our district. We all went into this, all the candidates that are running, I think are all in this because we're well-intended and we really care about our district. And so we're willing to make the commitment that we need to serve our district and to make sure that we are working with the board, board members, the superintendent, the teachers, and the staff to ensure that policy is being set and that we're implementing appropriate programs. And we will give it whatever it takes to make sure that we get the work done Will it always be easy? Absolutely not. Will change happen overnight? Absolutely not. But the one thing I can say is that I'm truly dedicated and committed to have a voice and be a voice for all the parents in this community to ensure that they're being represented well.
Can you read the question right again? I will read it.
Where do we find the time in the day and the days in the week? Well, I think every working mother asks that question, and somehow we always rise to the challenge. I think anybody who knows me knows that I am pretty indefatigable. I have quite a bit of drive and stamina. I'm running for the Board of Education because I believe it's in the best interest of my children and the children in our community, and it's going to be a top priority for me. The evenings and weekends and free time that we'll spend committed to our district are a way to be focused. I think we've all been very committed in our volunteer activities in the district, but by serving on the board, you can be much more focused in your time and have a much greater impact. And that's the opportunity that I'm looking forward to.
I don't know, the number of hours. I could say it's probably at least 20 hours a week, I would think, on many a week, between meetings, reading material, asking questions, going to functions. One of the things that I would like to see is actually more board visibility. It used to be that board members often went to various events at the schools and other kinds of functions, and I would like to see that happen more now. I think that somehow the board has become walled off a little bit from the community, and so I would add to those 20 hours a commitment to reaching out. When we're campaigning, we do coffees, we go door to door, we meet people everywhere, and then when we get onto the board, it's not so easy to make yourself do that, but I would like to try.
There are several cards without names, so since we can't call you up, we are not going to ask these questions. Also, there is one card which seems with a direct question for one person, and that also does not have someone's name, so those cards we will not read. The next person is William Graves.
The ACLU has filed a complaint with the U.S. Department of Education directing at the South Orange Maple North District disciplinary and tracking procedures. The complaint proposes a resolution agreement with 13 paragraphs of relief requested. Do you favor entering into a resolution agreement with the U.S. Department of Education? And if not, why?
Actually, the district has already entered into a consent agreement on the issue of discipline and has been working very hard for the past 2 years on reducing the number of suspensions and recognizes that the racial disparity in the suspensions is still an issue and is working on that as well. I don't favor entering into an agreement to de-level the high school, which is one of the other demands in the complaint. I think that we need to address the issues of the achievement gap and other issues in a different way. We need to make levels more flexible. We need to make it possible to move up and down depending on what the needs of the child are. And we need to, as I said before, open access to AP and honors courses. And I think we should offer more AP classes. Some of the other areas that are not reflected right now, computer science, things like that might appeal to a broader spectrum of the student population. So let's get to work on that, and I think the administration has been working on that. I understand, I think, why the complaint was filed at this time. With the departure of Dr. Osborne and Dr. Lilly, perhaps the complainants feel that they need to raise this issue a little bit more with their concerns to make sure that it's still visible in the process of the superintendent search. I understand that, but I don't think that we need to resort to litigation in order to address the problems in the district. I think we can handle it.
I'm not running to be an attorney for the district, but as a lawyer, I've always recommended that if there's a problem, and there's a conflict, it's better to own the problem and work consensually towards a resolution rather than fighting or rolling the dice to have someone else decide your fate. And I think many of us, when we read the ACLU complaint, recognized many of the problems that were described, right? They don't need legal definitions for us to know that they're not best educational practice. And we need to own those problems, and we need to continue working on those problems. And the sooner we get down to work, the sooner we can do better for our kids, and the easier it'll be for us to move past the legalities and to success. With respect to the structural issues and the tracking that is the focus of much of the complaint, I think we need to look long and hard at the systems that we have in place. They do not appear to be best educational practice, and while we can and should be expanding honors classes and AP classes, and that will, by definition, always result in some leveling, because as long as you have AP, you'll have classes that are not AP. We have a real problem when there are tracks that our children get on in 4th and 5th grade that direct their paths through high school and college, particularly with respect to math and science.
The ACLU complaint is really an opportunity for us to get it right. Our district has been grappling with this for some time, and this is really an opportunity for us to really start having that discussion and analyzing and looking at our systems that are in place and really questioning how are they serving our children. We know that all high school students, regardless of race or disabilities, engage in the same behaviors, but yet the disparities for infractions are very different. And so we really have to look at that and think about what's being addressed and how it's being addressed. We also have to look, as I mentioned earlier, about access and opportunity for all children, ensuring that there's access at the AP and honors level, and that children are not kept out of levels, especially when they're demonstrating the skill and the capability to handle the coursework. So I really would like to see this as an opportunity for our district to really start asking those tough questions and having the dialogue.
This goes on to 8:30? No. We have till 8:30 tonight? Okay, so we'll continue with the questions from the audience. Okay. Philip Corinos.
One aspect of our community's uniqueness is commitment and involvement in the arts. Can you hear that? No. All right. One aspect of our community's uniqueness is commitment and involvement in the arts. With constraints of budgets and instruction time and other constraints, how will the board ensure that the arts don't get undervalued in our children's education?
The arts are a really big part of our program in our district. We know many kids benefit from it. We have to really value the arts. We have many children where they may struggle academically and they shine in the arts. So we have to make sure that we are reflecting that in our program and our course offering. And I would say that the board really needs to be fiscally responsible in ensuring and looking at all arts programs before cutting it. We have to be mindful as to what's being offered to our kids and not take anything away that will shortchange them or stump them and not allow for a varied educational opportunity.
As someone who grew up in an area where arts education was not integral to my education in elementary or high school, I was very impressed, and that's one of the reasons we chose the South Orange Maine Wood Schools for our children, because we wanted their brains and their hearts and their souls to be nurtured and developed in all areas. I think with respect to preserving the funding and the programming that we have in our district, we need to do a couple of things. One, we need to look for additional funding sources. We have a major funding problem that stems from Trenton, and that is causing cuts in all areas. And right now, the arts in the past budget bore less of the brunt than other areas such as special education. but the math doesn't work and the numbers are looking grim. So our physical education department, for example, has been able to obtain the PEP grant, for example, that has kept both staffing and very vigorous programming in physical education and health. I think we need to continue to look for models like that and private partnerships and private fundraising efforts in order to sustain our arts programming. And as we embrace new academic initiatives, we need to make sure that the schedule and the resources within the school continue to support arts instruction.
I think we can all agree that we value the arts in this district and that none of us want to see cuts. So we really have to, as has been said, look to creative sources for funding. We also can look to the people in our community. We have a lot of resources here that we probably need to tap. It's time. We face a huge deficit coming up, and if we don't receive better funding from the state, which I've been in the district for a while, and I keep hearing this every year that we need to get better funding from the state, and it's never forthcoming. So we really have to be more creative with the budgeting, and I would like to see tapping local resources and getting grants and using other ways of getting what we want in this district. We don't want to lose sight of our arts. We also heard that the music instruction at the middle schools has been reduced kind of dramatically this year, mostly due to scheduling, and I think that's something that can also be addressed simply by looking at scheduling more creatively. And hopefully when they review it in the spring for next year, they'll be able to bring some of that music back, because I see that as a real loss.
Okay, Peter Tierney.
Hi, my name's Peter. I live in Maplewood, and I'm actually an international trader exporting U.S. products. But I had a question on our language curriculum. It just seems it doesn't really match the global economy right now. Teaching kids like French and Italian and even Spanish right now. I mean, the question, I guess, is simple. When will we teach our kids Chinese and Portuguese for China and Brazil? Because our kids are going to be working for Chinese and Brazilians. So I'm just wondering when we're going to make that decision quickly, if possible.
Lucky me. The challenges with our foreign language instruction have been mentioned repeatedly in the superintendent focus groups that I've attended. Both the rigor and skills that are being taught from the elementary level in Spanish. I think many parents find that there isn't sufficient progression from 3rd grade on, and that it's very repetitive. And then as children get to the high school, I think many parents are quite surprised at the very limited course offerings. This is something that we need to, a discussion that needs to continue, not just during the superintendent search, but it needs to be brought to the board's Equity and Excellence Committee. And we really, as we're looking to modernize our curriculum for college and career readiness in 21st century learning as well as life, this is the important discussion to have. And again, it's folks like you who are going to keep raising it, and children who are going to keep demanding it. I know children who are taking Japanese privately because it's not available in the school. And again, these are opportunities and access issues that we should resolve for all our children.
I would agree with Elizabeth. This is certainly a discussion that our district needs to start and continue to have. We need to start looking at how we are grooming our students in the languages. We offer a lot of the classic languages, but we do see our world is changing, and where the modern languages being offered are not the same as when we grew up. And so we need to start looking at that and having that discussion and seeing the opportunities that could be available so that we can prepare our students for college readiness and 21st century learning so that they can get to that next level. And I think as a community, we can recognize that we support our kids in that level and that we make it and provide the opportunities that they need. So this is a good discussion that we need to start opening up and having.
I would love to see more variety in the language being taught to our students. And maybe we can do it by online courses, if nothing else, to at least get started in some of the non-traditional language courses. One of the good parts about IB is the global thinking that it promotes, and the IB organization requires that the middle school students have world language instruction every day. That was one of the reasons that the scheduling resulted in less music, but that's another story. So it's great that they're getting Spanish every day, but as has been noted, Spanish is just one language that we could be teaching our children. And I agree also that it probably, the Spanish language instruction in the elementary and middle schools probably can be improved. My children, and my bad, I didn't teach them Spanish even though I know it, didn't learn anything in the elementary and middle years and only really started learning it well in the high school, at least a couple of them. And I think we could improve on that, and I would love to see other languages introduced.
Okay, Morgan Phyllis.
Thank you all for running. Good luck. You sort of touched on this earlier, but I wanted to ask specifically, pin you down specifically, do you think the current levels at Columbia High School should be maintained? If not, please explain which specific levels or level should be eliminated and why. Thank
you. I think, as I said before, I do not think that the levels should be dropped. I think they should be maintained. However, so I wouldn't eliminate any levels, but what I would like to see is a better approach to the levels. We need to communicate better to parents and students where the placement is, why they're being placed as such, and how they can move. And maybe we need to explore possibility of choice again. It's been talked about in the past, whereby students can choose with the support of their parents to try moving up a level or moving into an AP class. But that means we would need to give them the support in order to do that, because not all parents are engaged in the district and understand the ways of doing it. So that would require some real effort, and it's something that we could really talk about, and I think it's probably time to do that. But as far as de-leveling, I do not agree with that. I think our high school needs to maintain its standards. My concerns about the middle school level up program made me say that there's no way we can do it at the high school.
I don't think that having 4 or 5 levels in every single subject, including every single year of a foreign language, makes much educational sense or scheduling sense as a logistical matter. That being said, I'm not the principal and I'm not the assistant superintendent. As a board member, I want to work in dialogue with the parents whose children are living these levels, and I'd also want to understand from our administrative and educational leaders what are the best practices in other districts and what are other districts doing. What we've seen in the ACLU complaint is that what we're doing is generally not the best practice. It's not the current state of pedagogy to have 4 or 5 levels in every single subject, and to have children locked in from one level to the next year after year, rather than the opportunity to grow and a trajectory, a linear trajectory over the course of their education. So while I am not prepared, and I don't think any of us are prepared to say what the actual prescription should be, because I think it's a community discussion and a discussion that has to be had in conjunction with the professionals and the teachers, not just what we want, but how we achieve it. I do think that we have to look seriously at the rationality of the current system, particularly when it's driving so many families, both white and black, out of the district because they feel that their children are either going to fall through the cracks or not have opportunities that they can get in private schools where they're actually de-leveled.
I would agree with Elizabeth. This is a discussion that we need to have and start looking at deeply. We really have to, as I mentioned earlier, looking at access and opportunity is really what we have to start doing as a district. We have to start looking and seeing what's available to our students, what opportunities are being presented, and the opportunities for them to grow. We all want to see our kids grow, right? Children grow from 4th grade to high school, developmentally, socially, emotionally. So we have to recognize that children also grow academically from 4th grade to the high school level. So we have to ensure that as we are having these discussions, that we're not stunting growth, we're not eliminating our children for success, but that we're also supporting them and providing the proper resources. We need to ensure that it's also we have a much more transparent system, so parents and students both understand what's involved, how the system works, and helps them really make better choices in finding out the best way for their students to be placed. So this is, again, I really say it boils down to access and opportunity, and we ensure that children continue to be challenged and have rigor.
Okay, that concludes this section of the forum. Now we have candidates' final statements or closing statements. They will be 90 seconds each, and I guess Alice again will read. No, okay, there's one. Who would like to go first? Okay, here you go.
I have sat in a classroom where I didn't understand the language. I've taught children who didn't understand or know how to communicate. I've also helped families understand how to get children to succeed and reach families to be part of the school community. Improvement in our schools should be something we do with our teachers and not to our teachers. What I bring to the board is how successful change happens because I've worked in a school. We have to manage spending wisely, enable teachers to succeed, make parents full partners in their children's education. We have to make communication and listening a part of everything we do. And we have to ensure that no child is bored, that they encounter rigor, challenge, and opportunity in every classroom, every day. I've seen districts do this. It is possible to do this, even though it is not easy, and I know our district can do it. I ask for your vote on November 4th so that I can, as one of 9 members of the Board of Education, help make that happen. And I urge you to support my friend and running mate, Elizabeth Baker, who is also eminently qualified to serve. So thank you.
Thank you again for coming tonight and for the concerns that you bring to our schools and to this discussion. We're at a critical point in our district, and sometimes it seems like our work is getting harder. But we are a community that is willing to have tough, frank discussions, and we're a community that has great resources that we can bring to overcome these challenges. As a board member, I would work with all of you and with the leaders in our district and our schools to ensure that our system is based in true principles of partnership, dialogue, and transparency, and that we are welcoming to all families and all children. At the same time, as many of you who've worked with me know, I'm willing to ask tough questions, not to point the finger, not to play the blame game, but to make sure that we are focused each and every day and in each and every decision that we make on what is best for our children. That should be the guiding point in every single decision, every single dollar that we spend. In my professional life, I've learned to work across the aisle. I am an advocate and I call for change, but I'm also someone who every day has to work with other people, including people who disagree with me, sometimes strongly, in order to find common ground and make change happen. We have to pick a new superintendent for our district, and that is a critical choice that will affect our district and our children for years to come. But as importantly, we need to work with that new superintendent, and we need to work as a community to make sure that we are actually taking the visions that we adopted at Academy Street and making them real, making them meaningful for every child, every day. I look forward to the opportunity to serve on the Board of Education if I'm elected. I'm humbled by the experience, and I look forward to the opportunity to work with Maureen and to the other very dedicated members of the board. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming tonight, and I hope to have your support on November 4th. Along with everyone here, I cherish this community and care very much about the quality of education being provided to the students in our school district. With my background, knowledge, and skills, I believe that I can make a difference if elected to the board. We are facing a lot of challenges, including searching for a new superintendent, implementation of new programs, increased enrollment, new assessments, new people in key positions in the district, and an evident lack of trust felt by many teachers and parents. We must address these challenges head-on if our students are to succeed. If elected, my priorities will be addressing the needs of all students, from those with special needs to those who are gifted and talented, and providing challenging coursework at all levels. Supporting our teachers, providing better professional development and differentiated instruction at the elementary and middle school level so that we can prepare students for the high school, proper implementation and evaluation of new programs, and ensuring that we are spending our limited resources wisely. I am ready to get to work and look forward to meeting the challenges ahead. Thank you.
Thank you to all the candidates, and thank you to you, the audience. Everybody, I think, had a fruitful evening, and I applaud the candidates for coming tonight.